The morning began like any other. The electric waterers were working without a hitch. The pump on the citrus grove wasn't acting up, and the motion cameras hadn't picked up a thing overnight. Everything was normal. Jake walked his usual route, checking the fence line, glancing over the citrus, a look at the stock. Most things were mechanized these days, but you still had to run an eye over it all. He moved slowly, with his familiar limp, his left foot turned outward, and the boot rubbed at his heel. The cattle were grazing near the back fence. Lemons glistened in the morning sun, still damp from irrigation. Everything as it should be, until, beneath the old eucalyptus where kangaroos usually lounged, he heard a faint squeak. Jake stopped, squinted, took a step closer. A kookaburra chick, young, round, clearly just out of the nest. It lay in the shade about 10 feet from the trunk. One wing bent at an unnatural angle, its chest rising and falling with labored breath. But it stared straight at him, calmly. "Well, you silly bugger," he muttered. "Didn't anyone tell you that not even the crows land on this tree? The only eucalyptus on the whole farm. Massive, centuries old. Its crown still scorched black. Lightning had struck it 10 years back, burning through branches, yet the tree had survived. Fresh leaves covered it now. The trunk was dark, wrinkled like the skin of an old man. Its shadow fell as wide as a shed, cool even at midday. Jake carefully picked the kookaburra up. It jerked but didn't resist. The bird was light, almost weightless, a small bundle of warmth. "I took a fall from this one myself, you know, about 20 years ago. Been limping ever since. Well, guess that makes us partners now." He rose, gave the tree a nod, not out of superstition, but respect, and limped back toward the house, toward the first aid kit. Jake set the chick up in an old chicken cage he kept on the veranda, tucking it into the corner where it wouldn't get chilled by the night wind. The cage had no door, so he clipped a light mesh across the entrance. If the bird tried to fly too early, it wouldn't hurt itself further. He filled a ceramic dish with water and used the dog's old bowl for food. The dog had been gone for 5 years. Jake dug worms from the soil for the kookaburra and even caught a lizard once. The bird ate eagerly, tried to walk, and by the 3rd day had climbed onto the perch. It no longer feared the man, seemed even used to his voice and to its new name. He called it Kelly, like his cousin who as a child never spoke much but always saw everything. A week passed. One morning he stepped onto the veranda to check on her. Kelly sat on her perch, head tilted, eyes bright. And then without warning came laughter, sharp, far too loud for her small body. First short burst, ha ha ha, then higher, raspier, as though echoing from far off. Jake flinched. From beyond the forest, across the far slope, came an answer. Several voices, louder, deeper, the same ha ha ha, but heavier, rougher. They didn't come closer, only let her know they'd heard. He looked at the chick. "Who's calling back to you, Kelly? Your family?" He knew kookaburras learned their laugh before they ever left the nest. Each family passed on its own song, like a fingerprint, its own code. If they answered, then they recognized her. Somewhere out there past the ridge were her kin. "Well then, you found your voice." He smiled. "We'll mend that wing and you'll fly back to them, yeah?" He glanced at the empty food dish. "All right, Kelly, I get it." She just looked at him. Grunting, he headed out for his morning round. Beneath the eucalyptus lay a massive kangaroo. Normally, when a man approached, they pricked their ears, twitched, ready to bolt at any moment. This one didn't move. Jake stepped closer. Flies swarmed above the body. "Bloody hell," he muttered. A sick pull twisted under his ribs. He already knew. Ripped open, spine torn out, the giant male stretched nearly 6 feet long, eyes wide open. Jake froze. There weren't predators in these parts that could do this. Their only real enemy was man. But even then, usually in the dark, hit by a car. That was what rhubars were made for. A collision with 200 kilos of muscle and bone could wreck a driver and his ute. But this? Why would anyone tear the backbone out of a dumb animal? He needed to check the cameras. Someone had slipped onto his land, and not long ago, judging by the freshness of the wound. Jake hurried back home, as fast as his limp would allow. He checked the footage from the cameras by the gate and the house. Nothing. All quiet. Jake dialed the local ranger. "Greg Adams, ranger out of Dwellingup," came the gravelly voice. "Greg, morning. How's things?" "It's Jake Watson. Listen, I've got myself, let's say, a not-so-ordinary kangaroo." "Jake, what, you planning to adopt it?" the voice on the line teased. "Doubt he'd agree. He's got no spine, literally." "Well, good morning to you too. Any idea what did him in?" Greg asked. "Not a clue. I've seen plenty in my time, but nothing like this. What do I do with it? Can you come out, take a look?" "All right, Jake, I'll be there soon. Don't wander around your paddocks, wait for me." 20 minutes later, an old ute rolled onto the farm, dust stripes down its sides. Greg climbed out in a baseball cap and a vest with the patch Shire of Murray, notebook in hand. "G'day, neighbor," he said, extending his massive hand. "Show me your dearly departed." They walked toward the eucalyptus. The sun was already biting. Gnats drifted lazily above the grass. Flies swarmed over the carcass, the air thick and sticky sweet. Greg stopped a couple of steps short. The kangaroo's eyelids sagged half shut, its limbs splayed like a rag doll. Where its back should have been was a long, neat furrow, precise yet utterly senseless. "Well, bloody hell," the ranger muttered. "Good thing I skipped breakfast." "You didn't carve him up yourself, Jake?" "Yeah, woke up this morning and thought, why not rip a roo's spine out? For the exercise. Stranger things. Farmers are wound up these days. Weather, taxes, bloody flies." Greg buried his nose in his sleeve and circled the body. "What a monster. Who the hell took you down, an alpha male like this?" The ranger squinted, scanning the clearing. "You see anyone?" "Check the cameras?" "Yeah, nothing. Figures." Greg turned slowly. "No tracks, no struggle, no trail. Just lying here, like it was dropped out of a tree. Let's circle the property. You keep your farmer's eye open. Maybe you'll spot something odd. You know I don't like it when our quiet backwater turns into this kind of circus." "Me neither," Jake nodded. "Especially before breakfast." They followed the fence line in a wide loop. Greg crouched now and then, studying the dirt and dry grass. Jake walked beside him, squinting against the sun, letting his eyes skim the details he knew by heart. A broken twig here, cattle hoofprints and cow pats there, further on the neat trail of sheep and their pellets. The air carried the smells of dry grass, manure, resinous eucalyptus. Magpies and black crows called overhead, darting noisily between the trees at the forest's edge. Everything was just as it always was, and that sameness only sharpened the strangeness of what had happened. "Honestly, Jake, I've got no bloody idea. First time I've ever seen this. And the worst part, why? Looks like the work of some psychosurgeon. Spine's been lifted out so neat." "Bullshit," Jake muttered. "Last thing I need out here is psychos. Here's what we'll do. I'll log it, take some photos, send it through to the district. If anyone else reports something, we'll compare notes. But truthfully, I've got nothing. You bury this poor bugger with some dignity." Greg chuckled. "Need a hand? He's a heavy bastard. Thanks, I'll manage. Got a tractor, I'll put him under proper. If anything comes up in the district, let me know, yeah? I'm worried about the cattle. Don't need spines popping out of cows next." "Right, Watson. I'll keep you posted. And you be careful yourself." Ranger Adams drove off and Jake went to start up the tractor. He rolled it out to the far paddock and dug a shallow pit in minutes. The enormous, heavy carcass barely fit in the tractor's bucket. Jake had to heave the dead animal's head up by hand so it wouldn't loll about as he hauled it to the burial site. His mood soured completely. He lowered the roo into the earth, then covered it over, smoothing the dirt with the tractor. The whole time one thought circled in his mind. What sick bastard could have done this? As soon as Jake parked the tractor back in the shed, a car horn sounded softly at the gate. The gate stood open, and right in front of them a big banner flapped with bright fruit. Fresh citrus from the farm. Mandarins, limes, lemons, grapefruits, oranges. Pick your own or buy a ready bag. Jake limped toward the entrance. His citrus business was well known in the district. Twice a year big buyers came through, and during harvest he hired 2 seasonal workers. There was no way to manage such a grove on his own. But year-round anyone could stop in and pick fruit straight from the trees for a small fee. It was a handy addition to his income. At the gate stood a battered Toyota, beside it a young couple, tourists. Dwellingup, just an hour's drive south of Perth, was a popular spot for getaways. known for its hiking and biking trails, water sports on the Murray River, and of course local produce. Tourists often stop by for fresh fruit before heading to campsites or out on the marked tracks.
Good morning. We heard your mandarins are amazing. Can we buy some?
The girl asked. Jake nodded. Of course. You can pick them straight from the tree, or I've got some already bagged. The guy, tall and broad-shouldered in a bright blue polo and a neat sporty haircut, reached out a suntanned hand, his skin marked with elegant kanji tattoos. Kyle, we're down from Perth for the weekend camping out. Friends told us your place here is awesome. Jake, the farmer said, taking the handshake. Welcome to Dwellingup. There's plenty worth seeing here.
I'm Emmy,
the girl said, offering her hand. She was slim, her long chestnut hair tied in a high ponytail that stuck out from under a white cap with Perth thundersticks on the front. Her smile was dazzling, teeth bright white. A short white sundress hugged her lean, athletic figure.
I want to pick them straight from the tree. None of that supermarket vibe.
She laughed. Perfect. Come on then. I'll get you some bags and you can pick as much as you like. Jake led them down the well-trodden path into the citrus grove. The sun had risen higher, spilling gold over rows of dew-bright trees. The air was thick with fresh citrus scent. Kyle and Emmy gazed in delight at the dwarf trees heavy with fruit.
All this is yours?
Emmy asked with wonder, carefully placing mandarins into a paper bag. This orchard was left to me, so yes, it's my wealth, Jake replied proudly. He truly loved his farm, the grove where he'd been born and raised, and could speak of his land with warmth. Half an hour later, content and with bags full of fragrant mandarins, the young couple walked back toward their car. On the far side of the field towered the giant eucalyptus.
Wow, what a tree!
Emmy exclaimed, craning her head back.
I've never seen one that huge. Jake, can we take a photo with it?
Of course you can. Something clawed at Jake's chest, but he pushed the morning's ugly scene from his mind. No need to spoil the tourists' day. They walked to the tree. From its shade, a few startled kangaroos bounded off to a safe distance, turning to watch curiously what these humans were after in their rightful shade. Emmy handed Jake her phone. The couple wrapped their arms around the rough, wrinkled trunk, trying to show just how massive it was. Their fingertips barely met. Jake smiled and raised the phone to snap the picture. At that very moment, a piercing laugh rang out from the veranda. Kelly. From the forest across the far slope came the answering voices, her family calling back to their lost one. Kyle and Emmy, frozen mid-pose, flinched but then relaxed and laughed.
The kookaburras are laughing at us,
Emmy said cheerfully.
Thanks, Jake. This place is wonderful. We'll come back in a couple days on our way back to the city, grab some more mandarins and maybe oranges for juice.
Always welcome. Have a great weekend, Jake replied. The couple, white sneakers flashing, hurried off toward the gate. The next morning on Jake's farm started with a sharp honk at the gate. Who the hell shows up this early? Jake thought, glancing at the clock. It was 5:30 a.m. The first light of dawn was just creeping over the horizon. Jake set down his coffee mug and hurried outside. Two vehicles were waiting. One belonged to Ranger Greg Adams, the other a police car. Jake limped faster now, a bad feeling settling deep inside. He pressed the button on the post, and the gates slowly creaked open as the two vehicles rolled in. Greg stepped out first, followed by a tall, broad-shouldered officer in uniform, his face like stone. Jake felt a shiver run down his spine. "What's up, Greg? What kind of trouble brought you here at this hour?" "You're right, Jake. Trouble has come to our part of the world," Greg said, his voice unusually serious, devoid of its usual friendliness. The local ranger, a man in his 50s with a weathered face, looked older than usual. His normally kind eyes were narrowed by deep lines, the corners of his mouth tight with tension, giving him a harsh expression. The green uniform hung on him carelessly this time. Greg extended his hand to Jake, and Jake shook it firmly. Then Greg nodded toward the officer. "This is Sergeant Blake from Pinjarra." Blake gave a short nod and shook Jake's hand. "We need to talk." "Did a young couple come by yesterday?" Jake's heart skipped. "Yeah, they came for mandarins. Did something happen to them?" Blake fixed his gaze on Jake, his expression heavy and unyielding. They were found this morning on one of the tourist trails near the Murray River. He paused, and the words that followed hit Jake like a hammer. Both of them. With their spines torn out, Jake froze. Their laughing faces, the way they hugged the tree, flashed through his mind. "Come inside. I just brewed some coffee," Jake invited them. "Coffee won't hurt." "We were up and out of bed an hour and a half ago," Greg said, and they all headed toward the veranda. Jake poured coffee for everyone. "There are photos from your property on their phones, so we came straight to you." "And yesterday's kangaroo incident came to mind immediately," the ranger said grimly. "Their spines were torn out in the same way. It's still dark at the site, so you can't see much. The local cops from Pinjarra," Greg nodded at the officer, "have secured the crime scene and are waiting for backup from Perth. For now, we came to see what you know about these young people. What exactly do you want to know? Names, ages, appearance?" Jake asked. "We already have that. They stayed at a campsite. Their belongings and documents are there, and a lot of people remember them well. Everyone says they were lovely kids," Blake said. "Yeah, a normal, happy couple. Such a shame. From what I understand, they were athletes. Kyle looks like a rugby player and Emmy wore a Perth Thundersticks cap, so a field hockey player," Jake said sadly. "Who could do something like this? They were strong, athletic people. They could have fought back, though that kangaroo wasn't weak either." "Greg, Blady shit, what's going on?" "That's why we wanted to ask if you noticed anything unusual," Greg said. "Unusual? You could say that," Jake sighed. "But no, the young couple behaved normally. Nothing strange. They bought mandarins, 3 bags from the trees, then took photos by the eucalyptus. You saw the pictures yourselves. They were here for maybe half an hour, promised to return in a couple of days when they head back to the city. Wanted to get more fruit. It was fully light now, and the early visitors prepared to leave. We have to go. The Perth specialists are on the way," the officer said, glancing at a text. "Where did you put the kangaroo?" "Buried at the far end of the property," Jake said, waving toward the bush. "We might have to exhume the poor animal. We'll need to study the nature of its injuries," the Pinjarra officer said. After shaking hands, they left into the anxious morning. Jake hurried to the cows for morning milking. They had been calling from the barn for some time. The milk truck would be arriving soon, and he needed to get moving. Kelly, ever the eager companion, bounced along beside him, awkwardly flapping her injured wing. She now often accompanied Jake, chirping something in response whenever he spoke to her. By around 9 a.m., Adams, Blake, and another official returned. The newcomer introduced himself as forensic specialist Miller. He wore a white t-shirt, jeans, and a light ballistic vest marked WA Police. A baseball cap with a crime scene emblem and Rambo-style sunglasses completed the look. "You're here for the kangaroo?" Jake asked. "Greg says its injuries match those seen on the tourists. We need to compare them in the lab," Miller said. "Got it. Had I known, I wouldn't have buried him," Jake replied curtly. "Head over to that fence." He pointed to the property edge by the bush. "I'll bring the tractor." A few minutes later, the diesel engine of the John Deere tractor roared to life, and the machine slowly moved to the designated spot. Skillfully lowering the bucket and loosening the soil, Jake carefully lifted the kangaroo. Its back was caked in dirt, but otherwise the body was clean. Loose soil fell away. Miller studied the unfortunate animal closely. "Yes, the spine is clearly removed the same way." "All right, Jake, take him to Greg's ute. Hopefully this champion fits." Miller spread a black garden plastic bag in Greg's truck bed. "Standard body bags won't work here. This guy's huge. Dump him in." Jake slowly tilted the bucket over the truck bed, letting the kangaroo slide in. Miller and Greg covered it with another bag and stapled the edges. "Jacob, tell me quickly how and where you found him." "Can I see the spot?" Miller asked. "Sure. Over there under that eucalyptus," he pointed. "Wow, everything on your farm's gigantic." Miller laughed. They all walked toward the sprawling tree where kangaroos scattered again from its shade. "I see they've made themselves quite at home here," Blake said. "Exactly. They hang out here all day. By noon the cows come too. There's enough shade for everyone," Jake replied. Got it. Well, everything's trampled, but we need to document it anyway. Miller pulled out his phone and started taking photos. Meanwhile, Blake ran his hand along the eucalyptus trunk. Huge, no wonder the kids wanted a photo with it. At that moment, Kelly laughed from her perch on a fruit crate by the barn. From the bush came the expected reply laughter. A cold sweat ran down Jake's spine. A heavy, inexplicable sense of dread settled in his mind.
Nonsense bullshit can't be, he muttered, trying to shake the intrusive thought. Jake, you're pale.
What's wrong, son? Greg asked, concerned. Just a weird thought, nothing. Just the heat, Jake replied. Might be nothing, but even nonsense can be a clue. Share it. Every little thing counts, Miller said firmly. Before I found the kangaroo here, my kookaburra laughed, and it got a response from the bush. Yesterday, when the couple was taking photos, it laughed too. And now again. He looked at Blake, who withdrew his hand from the eucalyptus. Your kookaburra? Jacob, what the hell are you talking about? Greg raised his voice. I said it was nonsense, Jake said, embarrassed. A tense silence fell. Where did you get a kookaburra? And why is it yours? Greg pressed. It's almost a chick. I found it here about 10 days ago, probably fell from a tree, injured wing, can't fly. I'm nursing her. She follows me like a little dog now, see? Sitting by the barn, keeping an eye on us. I named her Kelly, though maybe it's a male. She seems to understand and responds when I call her. Interesting, but I still think it's nonsense. I don't believe in mystical stuff and don't recommend you do, Greg said sternly to the pale Blake and Jake. Thanks for your cooperation. Jake, we have to go before our patient dies a second time under this sun, Officer Miller said, extending his hand. A few minutes later, the police and ranger vehicles were already rolling out the farm gates, leaving Jake alone in the quiet of his land. He lingered a moment, watching them go, then exhaled heavily and headed back to the house, to his endless chores. He tried all day to focus on the routine, but it was difficult. His thoughts kept circling the eucalyptus. He felt drawn to the tree like a magnet, but he pushed the obsession away like a song stuck in his head. Finally, all the work was done. After a cold shower, he collapsed onto his old leather couch, popping open a beer. His leg throbbed. He needed a break. Netflix waited. Suddenly, the evening silence was shattered by the distant wail of sirens. The sound grew louder as it approached the farm. Jake froze, his heart pounding faster than that morning. He stood on the porch when a whole cavalcade of police cars screeched to a halt at the gate. Jake, as he had in the morning, hurried toward the gate, limping heavily. Out of the vehicle stepped Ranger Adams, Officer Miller, and another officer, their faces grim and tense. Behind them were two serious, silent officers, accompanied by a German Shepherd. Greg approached first, his voice hoarse. Jake, they found Blake. Blady shit. Are you serious? Where? Jake asked, though he already had an idea of what he would hear. In his own backyard in Pinjarra, no spine. His wife found him, Greg said, and the words hit Jake like a hammer. Jake stepped back involuntarily. Miller, standing a little apart, slowly removed his sunglasses and began wiping them as if trying to erase what he had seen. I told you, Jake whispered. Yes, you did, Miller replied. That's why we need to inspect your farm again. There's clearly a connection here. Jake, we don't have a warrant to secure your land, but you understand us. It's a matter of honor. Our colleague was killed, said Detective John Smith. Will you allow us to inspect your farm? I understand. You can inspect the whole farm, but for heaven's sake, don't touch that damn tree, Jake said, resigned. 3 police cars cut through the darkness, slowly moving along the gravel road. Their bright, powerful headlights instantly turned night into day, illuminating the sprawling canopy. Jake, we'll check all the buildings on the property now, and tomorrow we'll do a full inspection in daylight. Come on, I'll show you everything. Jake limped toward the barn. Sorry again for the late intrusion, but we need to make sure you're safe, Smith said. You're probably very tired. We won't keep you long. Our patrol guys will stay by the gate overnight, and Miller and I will spend the night at your Ranger Adams' place, so we can start the inspection more thoroughly tomorrow. 2 cops with the German Shepherd Max followed at a distance. The dog sniffed, then bolted toward the eucalyptus. Jake froze, his heart racing as the dog sniffed the trunk. Suddenly, Kelly let out a piercing laugh. From the bush came a terrifying echo of laughter. Everyone froze, unable to speak. "Shit, Max, over here!" Miller shouted, but everyone knew it was too late. The dog stopped sniffing the tree and hurried back. After quickly inspecting all the buildings and circling the property perimeter, the experts from Perth said goodbye to Jake and left to spend the night at Adam's place. 2 constables remained on duty at Jake's veranda with the service dog. Jacob tossed and turned for a long time, feeling mosquitoes hitting the net over his bed, his heart thumping heavily. Sleep came in a jolt, as if someone had shoved him from behind, and he found himself in semi-darkness. Before him, a solitary eucalyptus, black against the pale sky. A voice without mouth or face sounded directly in his head and deep beneath the earth.
"You, Jake, survived because you were a child. I just marked you, broke you, but left you. The Nurlka don't touch the children. The children haven't made a choice yet, but touching me makes them mine. I am the spirit of the forest, but I don't need the forest. I do not love other trees. I live among the solitary, like yours, standing like sentinels in the scorched land, at the edge of the world."
The words flowed like warm wind, but made his teeth chatter with cold.
"I gave you strength. You limp, but you move faster than the wind. Your hands can tear flesh. You get the blood. I get the bone. That was the deal."
Jake twitched and the dream shattered. He awoke standing under the shower. Hot water hammered his shoulders, washing dark streaks off his skin. The bathroom light cut into his eyes, revealing every detail. Jake ran his hand over his chest and felt a sticky crust. Blood. It was everywhere. On his hands, face, under his nails. Between his fingers, something crunched. He saw a thin white shard of bone. A sweet taste lingered in his throat. He coughed and spat out a clump of fur onto the tile. For a second, he felt nauseated, but then a strange warm wave of satisfaction washed over him. He raised his eyes to the mirror. From the murky glass stared a man he no longer recognized. His face twisted, dark foam stuck in the corners of his mouth, eyes burning with an alien gleam. He tried to look away, but the reflection smirked on its own, then suddenly laughed, sharp, guttural like a kookaburra. Outside, Kelly answered with her clear laugh, and the forest picked up the chorus. It sounded like thousands of voices laughing right outside his house. Jake pressed his hands to his ears, but the laughter was now inside his head. And then he understood. This was not a nightmare. This was the deal. His hands, their claws. His mouth, their beak. His strength, their hunger. He gets the blood. They get the bone. He stepped closer to the mirror, studying his red-stained fingers. And for the first time, he felt no disgust, only hunger.